Okay, so I'm doing a test here on basically this starter solenoid. This is a Ford external starter relay or starter solenoid. You'll find this on modern starters sometimes, like the F-150 I think may still use it pretty late in the game, but this design has been around since 1959 I think. But anyways, this design, it was a 87 E350, and the starter intermittently was not working. If you look at the starter on this vehicle, basically it didn't have a starter solenoid on the case of the starter. The solenoid was remotely mounted on the firewall area, front grill area, somewhere in there. I can't remember. This is months ago. But anyways, so sometimes Ford uses an external starter solenoid, and sometimes they use one on the starter, and sometimes they use both. So they'll have the solenoid sending power to another solenoid on the starter, if I recall correctly. But anyways, this starter on this RV randomly would not work. It was no crank, intermittent. So I like to basically tear things apart, see what's going on, see what fails. So let's start by checking continuity. We shouldn't have any continuity on a good starter solenoid when it's not powered on. So we have no continuity on the meter. Now we're going to turn on the starter solenoid as if it was cranking, and we have continuity. Off, no continuity. Back on, have continuity. Off, on. One thing you notice that the resistance isn't always the same. So let's look at our meter leads touched together. 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. So basically we have something that we don't want, which is resistance. Now that's not really an accurate test. Not the best way of checking it. Best way is using your voltmeter and checking the circuit when everything's operational and check it in parallel, but this will do for a bench test. So turn it on. Continuity. See, I don't even have continuity right there, so we definitely have a starter solenoid issue. So now I'm going to turn the starter solenoid apart. Okay, let's see what we got here. So we got some rivets. So if you want to open this thing up, you need to drill out the rivets and pull it off. The drill's easier. What size do we have? That is a 3/16 inch. Okay, so now we've got this thing opened up. These rivets are out. So this is what the inside of this solenoid looks like. Okay. So I'm going to try and get this opened up. big magnet. We have our coil here. This coil is basically just a bunch of wire wrapped around probably about 100 times, maybe more, really small gauge wire. When you wrap it around an iron core, this goes back to elementary school, and teacher came out with a piece of wire and a nail. Anyways, you're creating a magnetic field. So basically a starter solenoid is a lot like an ignition coil. Let's see if we can get this apart though. Okay, so that is basically what a starter solenoid should not look like. And you see these contacts in here are arc welded, and I mean, at some point the starter might have actually stuck on, because you can see that the metal is just, this copper has gotten so hot it's melted. So that's one rare thing that can happen, is your starter sticks on. But yeah, the contacts inside on each post are, you know, just as worn out. But generally the solenoid posts are stronger, and the other ends, usually this would be a solid copper plate like in a traditional starter solenoid that's on the starter itself, and that copper plate would be serviceable. Like Toyota Denso starters, you can get just a plate for a couple bucks, replace it every 100,000 miles, and you'll never really need a starter motor in a lot of cases if you just put that plate in there that wears out like this. But I worked at a starter and don't need a rebuild shop when I was going to college, and anyways, yeah, basically I think I've had a lot of these apart, but they're pretty simple in design. This is an old school design though. Newer starter solenoids are a little bit different, but same principle inside. You got cork here for insulation, a gasket, try and keep the water out. There is corrosion in here though. You see there's corrosion right there on that soldered connection, and corrosion in here. I don't know if you can see it, but that's a bit of a problem.